Today is June 8th, 2011. We are at Glenville State College, the Robert F. Kidd Library, conducting an oral history interview with William Fultineer about his service in the military. Could you please give me your full name as it is recorded on your birth certificate?
William Roland Fultineer.
Okay. Do you have a nickname, sir?
Bill.
All right. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Weston, West Virginia, Lewis County.
What was your job in the military?
I was a machine gunner.
Okay. What was your first unit duty where you're stationed?
I was stationed at Khe Sanh, Vietnam, with the 26th Marines Headquarters Company Security Platoon on Hill 950.
Okay. Is that where you spent the most of your military service?
That's exactly where I spent most of my military service.
Okay. What do you remember most about your military service?
The friends that I've made, and I still have.
Okay. So you've stayed in contact with the...
Indeed. There was only 7 of us out of my platoon that made it home, and we're all very close today.
Okay. Was there anyone else that you, in your platoon from West Virginia?
No.
No. Okay. Was there any difference in, or did you experience any difference from your fellow soldiers because you were from West Virginia?
Absolutely. They all had a nickname for me. Was Hillbilly or Ridge Runner, but it was all done in great fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you feel the need to enlist, or were you drafted?
No, I enlisted, sir.
Okay. Were you allowed to choose your branch of service?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Is there a reason that you chose the Marine Corps?
Yes. Number 1, for the tradition. Number 2, they had a 2-year enlistment at the time I enlisted, and that's the biggest reason I went to Marine Corps, was the 2-year enlistment.
Okay. What do you remember most, if you feel comfortable about answering this question, about the battles you experienced?
What do I remember most?
Mm-hmm.
The constant incoming from the enemy, the mortar rounds, the artillery rounds. We went from June the 18th till April the 6th with incoming every day. I mean, it was just a constant thing.
Mm-hmm. All right. After the engagements, how did you and your fellow soldiers soften or reduce any stress?
We just didn't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me 35 years after I got out of the Marine Corps to be able to talk about it.
Okay.
It was just something that we didn't converse about.
Okay. All right. Did you have any feelings that you'd like to express about the conflict you were involved in?
Well, not so much the conflict, but it was. The 2 years that I spent in the Marine Corps was probably the most worthwhile thing I've ever done in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It made me appreciate this country.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything that you specifically remember or would like to mention about your basic training?
It was tough, but as I tell the kids today that are going in, if you keep your mouth shut and do as you're told, you'll get through fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you answered, you said it was actually a good long time before you were ever able to talk candidly about your experience over there.
Right.
Okay. What was your opinion of your officers?
We got along fine with them.
Mm-hmm.
We had no problem with them. We, especially when we got a new one after we were in country for a while, how do I want to put this? We had to educate them, but the ones that we had were pretty educable. They would listen to us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Were you aware of any of the officers that had been promoted from the ranks?
Not during the Siege of Khe Sanh, but I have met some since I've been out of the service. Yes.
Okay.
They're called Mustangs.
Okay. Um, did you experience or work with any foreign nationals?
No, I did not. No.
Okay. All right. Did you take part in any actions at night?
Yes, we ran several patrols at night, and that was an experience.
Do you have any comments about the difference between working during the day and the night?
The night belonged to them.
Mm-hmm.
You must remember that. In that war, the night belonged to them. We saw them very, very seldom during the daytime, except during the Siege of Khe Sanh when they had 2.5 divisions surrounding us. So we had no problem seeing them then.
Mm-hmm.
But until the siege was built up, until they built up, I should say, around Khe Sanh, we saw them mostly at night. And that's when most of the conflict happened, was at night until the siege began.
Okay. All right. Did you have any experience? I'm sure you had experiences with mud, but is there any observations that you can express that you had with the terrain and the mud that you experienced?
Red clay mud is what was at Khe Sanh.
Mm-hmm.
And, that and the rats. And during the siege, we lived in the trench lines with the rats. We just become accustomed to them. They became our friends. If you want to, that's being said facetiously, of course. But you got used to the mud. We couldn't shower. We couldn't shave. We couldn't do anything during the siege for the 70-some days that the siege went on. But that's just something that you had to deal with.
Is there any problems that came about because of the mud with your weaponry or your equipment?
No, we kept our weapons pretty clean. I left on a medevac chopper, and I can remember having the pussy sores on my wrists from the mud, from not being able to keep myself clean. But like I said, those once you got cleaned up, those went away pretty fast.
Okay. I'm not sure if you had any experience with more dry. Was there any time when it was dry and that there was dust?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In Southeast Asia, they have what is called a monsoon season. Everyone has heard of that, when it's extremely wet for 2 or 3 months. Outside of that, it's very dry. And the dust at Khe Sanh during the dry time was atrocious, yes.
Was there any... What did you guys do to basically... combat that dust, or to keep yourself from breathing it so much? Or
not much you can do. The dust was the worst when we were down at the base and off the hill, and the planes or the helicopters would come in and raise the dust. That's when it was the worst. Or when we were getting resupplied on Hill 950, when the chopper would try to land, that's when the dust was the worst. Outside of that, it wasn't too bad.
Okay. Did you experience much sickness during your time there? Did you see?
No, I can truthfully say I didn't see much sickness at all. A few of the guys caught malaria, but that was just normal for that particular part of the world. And they gave us the big orange lozenges to combat that. And outside of that, there wasn't much illness at all.
Okay. All right. So did you know how long you were going to be in Vietnam when you first went?
Yes, we did. The Marine Corps had the longest tour of any branch. We were there 13 months. We knew that when we enlisted in the Marine Corps, when we were shipped overseas. We knew we were going to be there for 13 months. Every other branch had to be there a year. So we had to serve a month longer in the Marine Corps.
I see. Okay. So you basically had an enter-on date, and then you had an exit date.
Exactly, and we kept a calendar. To the man, we kept a calendar. We knew when we were going to get to go home, when it was our turn to rotate. Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you describe what it was like to return home to your family?
It was exhilarating to be back in what we called the world, and to have hot chow, and to be able to take a shower when you wanted to. It was... and to be back among your loved ones, it was an exhilarating time. Yes.
I'm kind of curious about food. During your time in the battle that you referred to,
right?
What did
we ate? Sea rations, which were World War II leftovers, all canned food, and we got to the point where we liked them. But after a while, when the siege was going on, our food became rationed because they couldn't resupply us. They had to do it by air, so it got pretty hairy. And instead of 3 squares a day, we usually got 1. So it was pretty hairy at times. But I like the sea rations. I would eat them today if I had a chance.
Okay. Were you able to make use of the GI Bill?
Absolutely. I was at Glenville State, transferred from Shepherd before I went in 1966. I enlisted in 1966, came back to Glenville in the spring of 1968, in the summer of 1968, on the GI Bill, and that finished up my education.
Okay. Were you aware of that opportunity before you even entered the military, or is that something?
I knew it was there. Yes, I knew the opportunity was there once we got out of the service, yes.
Okay. All right. Do you have any advice or anything that you would like to say to current men and women serving in the military, or possibly individuals or young people considering entering the military at this point?
The military today is not a bad vocation for any young man. As a matter of fact, and I think if you talk to a lot of veterans, they'll probably feel the same way I do, that I think it should be mandatory for every young man to serve 2 years right after high school, and then they'd be ready to do what they have to do for the rest of their life. They'd be settled down. They would know how to cope with what am I looking for here? They would know how to cope with authority and how to be organized and to get to the job on time. I think the military would be good for every young man for 2 years.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that you would like to add to the interview? I mean, anything at all?
No, except I made some of the best friends I've ever made in my life.
How do you stay in contact with these individuals? Do you guys
we talk to each other on the phone every week. Every week. Do
you have a reunion or take part of any sort of reunion?
We have a Khe Sanh survivor reunion every year, and we usually go to that and we can talk in person. Otherwise, the 7 guys out of my platoon, we talk pretty much every week.
Where is the reunion located?
It's moved around to different parts of the country every year.
Okay. To accommodate
to accommodate the members, right?
Okay. Was there? Did you have any interaction at that point with women being in the military when you were overseas?
None whatsoever. There wasn't even any nurses where we were.
Okay.
None. No.
Okay. All right. You named the one engagement in battle that you experienced. You've said it several times.
The Siege of Khe Sanh.
The Siege of Khe Sanh.
Right.
Was there any others that actually had, titles that you?
Sure, but they didn't have titles. They when you're running a patrol, we make contact quite often, or if we were setting up an ambush, and I was involved in several of those.
Okay. All right. Were there individuals in your family that were in the military before you entered?
Oh, yes. My father was in the Navy in World War II.
Okay.
My older brother was in the Army, and my younger brother was in the National Guards.
Okay.
Yes.
Has that tradition continued the generations after?
Well, we're waiting. We're waiting to see. My grandchildren, I don't know. But those are the members of our family that have been in the military and no others.
Okay. All right. Do you have any personal feelings towards the enemy?
I have to give them credit. They were tough little sons of guns, and they would fight. And I do respect them for what they did. Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. Well, I would like to thank you for your service to our country, sir.
Thank you.
And I would actually like to especially thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this interview.
No problem. And I would like to say right now, Mr.
Okay.
Gunn,
Okay.
that of the 7 members of my platoon that came home, there's some true heroes. There's books been written about them.
Okay.
And about us. So I'm very, very proud of my friends that made it through.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.